Copyright in these lectures is either owned by the ANU or a third party who has licensed the ANU to use it. Students may use the recording for personal study only. No lecture may be communicated online, copied or shared without the prior permission of the ANU.
Which is the cost of litigating the contract and monitoring cost. So based on the literature about the transaction cost, the author hypothesized that higher drafting cost will result in less complete contract. And more detailed contract will be positively related to the larger loan amount and longer maturity. Second determinant, asymmetric information. Actually, this is a very important feature of the contract incompleteness. And the author took a broad view to the literature and suggesting that when the information is XN more symmetric, the contract will be less complex. And they hypothesized that contract complexity will be negatively related to the front age and asset tangibility. The third determinant, renegotiation cost. Based on the literatures above, the author hypothesized that in a longer maturing contract, the renegotiation cost is positively related to the contract complexity. But here comes one problem. How to measure the renegotiation cost? To solve this problem, the author adopts two processes, which are the number of syndicate partner and product market fluidity. Part 3, text-based analysis. In order to prove the hypothesis in part 2, the author collect the data and do the regression in this part. The raw data of this paper is the private loan contract, spans from year 1996 to 2015. And the database the author used is Agar and their scan loan database. And then the author manually searched and extract a list of event of defaults to clean up the raw data. The author firstly split the document into individual sentences and then moved the resulting sentence. And last of all, eliminate the section and subsection header. As a result, the author obtained their sample size, which is 3,445 full section and almost 70,000 individual sentences. To prepare the text-based analysis, the author also do the following steps. The first step, convert all words into lowercase and then remove the punctuation. Delete the number and the subwords such as N, so, D, and so on. And last step is erase word suffix. After complete the pre-processing of the text-based analysis, they start to elect a vocabulary with 3,999 unique words, occurring more than 1.6 million times. After collect the data, the author starts to measure the contract detail and completeness by 3 measurements, which are the word counts, sentence counts, and probabilistic topic model. And I will try my best to introduce one by one. First of all, word counts. The author treats word count as 2 perspectives, which are the number of unit word and the number of total word. In regard of the total word, the author can capture the length of contract, and the perspective of unit word, they can find out the variety and richness of this contract. Apparently, this is an easy way and simple way to understand and count the contract detail by word counts. But here comes one problem. People can measure the simple idea by excessive vocabulary. To prevent this situation, the author adopts the second measurement, which is a sentence counts, which can capture the breadth of topic that are covered in the sentence process. Moreover, the author also adopts the latent directionless allocation model, which is credited as the simplest and most popular probabilistic topic model in the world. And the mechanism is shown as above. Actually, this is a reverse process, and in comparison with the first measurement and the second measurement, I'll try my best to precisely explain this mechanism. For the first step, we need to find out the main topics in each sentence, and then we can determine the number of the topic in the section. And the third step, we can find out the relevant words from the distribution of the topic model. And last of all, we can find out the usage, the proportion of the topic in the all event of defaults. And the results are showing in the table 2. From the panel A, we can see the result of the first measurement word counts, and the second measurement and third measurement is shown in panel B. And the panel C shows the correlation coefficient between measurements, which are positively related. So, as this result, the author made a conjecture that the larger number of unit words are used to describe the event of default is associated with the more distinctive and more detail of the event of default. So this is all result of measuring the contract detail and completeness. And the author continuously explored the contract similarity between contract and contract. So the rest part of our presentation will be provided our group member. Let's warmly welcome Dado.
Thank you, Di Chao. And besides the measure of the contractual details, the paper also calculates the distance between documents to measure how similar one loan contract is from another. The distance between documents is measured as the dissimilarity based on the cosine similarity. The function is shown below. Also, the paper matches the loan variables to the firm level data. We can see from the table is the summary of the statistics for the firm level and the loan level variables, and also the correlation coefficients. These determinants will be shown in the following models. And here comes the model. First of all, the paper measures the determinants in the word count measure. The column 1 and 3 are for the firm level variables, while the 2 and 4 are for the loan variables. To make these results easier to understand, we summarize them in a table. From the table, we can see those determinants are positively correlated with word counts. Stock return volatility and leverage ratio are significantly correlated with the word counts. As we expect, higher leverage ratio and higher stock return volatility will lead to the lengthier events of default, which is correlated with the default risk. The application of covenants is working in the same way. Both loan amount and maturity are also significantly correlated with word counts. So we can draw a conclusion here. The contracts are more detailed when the firms are close to the default boundary. These determinants are negatively correlated. Age, tangible assets, and close lenders, they are both negatively significantly correlated with the word counts. This shows that the borrowers and lenders are attempting to contract away the cost of asymmetric information. And the number of lenders, and with the increase of the number of lenders, the word counts will decrease as well. So this suggests the large lending syndicates will decrease the complexity of the contract, which also means the contract with larger lending syndicates will be less likely to be renegotiated. Synthesis and probabilistic topic models. Just as Di Chao mentioned, the writers may use excessive words to express just a few ideas. So to fix that, the paper involves the measure of sentence count and main topic counts. And in model 2 and 4, the author adds the number of words to test if there is any additional information. Here's the result. The increase of words will increase the sentence count and main topic counts. The segment concentration is also positively correlated with the sentence count and main topic counts, which is unexpected according to the paper, because a lower HHI will lead to the more diverse and more complex operations. The stock return volatility is negatively correlated with model 2 and 4 after adding the word counts. The higher the volatility, more sentences with few words will appear in the contracts. Now let's turn to the measure of similarity. The paper firstly tried to control for the natural similarity, setting the dummy variables and running a regression. And then it calculates the average residual distance from this regression to measure the determinants of overall contract similarity. These are the results. The paper posits that higher the average distance, higher the language similarity, which means the contract will be more unique and less boilerplate. From the results, we can see that Topping skew is naturally and significantly correlated with the distance, while the tangible assets are positively correlated. It implies that the firm with high growth opportunities are more likely to face greater enforcement costs and imperfections. And the firms with more tangible assets, they can show less boilerplate language. The loan amount is also negatively correlated here. It shows that the more specific loan provisions are more common for the smaller loans, implying the contract with the contract standardization can assure the enforceability of the larger contracts. The number of lenders is negatively correlated with the distance as well. So the contract with the larger lender syndicate will have more boilerplate language. The paper further examines the relationship between the credit and risk complexity. The results are very obvious here. Higher the credit firms, the more total and unique words in the default sections. However, in this model, the leverage ratio is not as significant as in previous slides, while the stock return volatility are relevantly significant with the total words and main top accounts after controlling the credit quality. The paper also examines the interaction with loan maturity to test the impact of renegotiation costs. From the table, we can see that the most significant impact is with the number of lenders, which is a positive correlation. So the direct cost of renegotiating with a larger syndicate can increase the overall complexity of the contract. Now let's turn to the relationship between the contract completeness measures and the measures of the ex-post performance and cash saving behavior. We discussed it from three aspects. The first aspect is about the change in return on assets. From the table, we can see that the ROA is positively correlated with total words, unique words, sentences, and the main top accounts. But it's not so significantly correlated with the credit quality. The second part is the sales growth. The same as in ROA is positively correlated with the complexity measures. However, the difference is that the credit quality is negatively correlated here. So we know that the lower quality firms will have lower sales growth. The third part is the cash holding. Similarly, the cash holding is positively correlated with the complexity measures. The firms appear to retain more cash when the contracts are with more details. It may be due to the company is making greater returns, or the cash tends to be saved rather than reinvested. However, there is at least one thing that we can make sure is that the firms are generating more cash relative to their future investment needs. The overall conclusion. Just as Dichal mentioned, the costs are categorized in three parts. The first part is the transaction cost. Writing more details in the contract will lead to a significant cost, so it will decrease the completeness of the contract. The increase in enforcement costs and implementation costs will also increase the completeness of the contract. Asymmetric information. The less information we know about the firm, there will be more details presented in the contract. Renegotiation cost. Knowing about the renegotiation cost, the ex-ante contracts will increase their completeness in order to avoid this kind of cost. And just as we discussed in the previous slides, the benefits will also be affected by the completeness. With the completeness increase, the benefits to investment efficiency will also increase, and more details will increase the future returns and sales growth. Also, the paper explores new avenues on the text-based measures. It provides a new direct method on analyzing without the need to categorize the details of the contract into potentially arbitrary categories. It also opens up the new possibilities on research by eliminating the need to manually categorize the complex textual documents. Finally, let's discuss on our critical comments. we come up with 4 critical comments. The first one is about the unclear relationship between the distance and completeness. In the paper, the distance measures the similarity of the long contract relative to the red samples. However, the author ignores to mention the relationship between the distance and completeness. So how can they affect each other? It's very confusing. We suggest to interpret the direct relationship between the similarity and completeness, or replace the similarity analysis with other clearer estimators. The second one is about the unpersuasive data. R-square, the coefficient of determinants, can measure how well the dependent variables be explained by the independent variables. The closer to 1, the dependent variables will be better explained. However, in this page, the max R-square is only about 0.584, while the most R-squares are below the 0.1, which is very small. Also, the determinants chosen can be correlated with each other, leading to the inaccurate results. Although the paper calculates the coefficient correlations, the authors don't analyze the determinants and do some further adjustments. So, those determinants who are insignificant in the current models may be actually significant when their correlated determinants are not considered. Therefore, we suggest to analyze the correlations between among the determinants, adding new determinants and adjusting the inefficient ones. Also considering about their interactions and dummy variables to make the efficient results. The third one is about the incomplete explanation for the segment concentration. The segment concentration here is calculated as the HHI index. The formula is shown below. In common sense, for the contract as a whole, the higher HHI means less diverse segments, and the contract will be less complex, so it's negatively correlated. And for the particular concentrated segment part in the contract, the higher HHI means there will be more terms and more description in the contract, so it should be more complex. So this is the positive correlation. However, in the paper, it mentioned an unexpected result, which is HHI is positively and significantly related to the contract complexity. So, what's the conditions? We suggest to clarify under which circumstance the segment concentration is discussed with, under the whole contract or under the segment part. Also, check the model efficiency and interpret further on the results. The last one is about the relationship between the completeness and complexity. The paper assumed the contract completeness and the contract complexity go hand in hand. And it also explained that the complexity is a number of clauses that are specified in detail, while the completeness is a specification of promises, obligations, and processes. From these two explanations, we think the complexity is more about the language and sentences, while the completeness is more on the results, more on the contents. So the quantitative data from the complexity analysis cannot represent all the meaning from the contract. This is an unconvincing quantitative method. Therefore, we suggest to combine the quantitative method with the qualitative method, extend the determinant searching range instead of leaning on only the complexity. Also, add the more accurate determinants and consider more about using dummy variables. So this is our presentation. Thank you for listening.